Hello everyone. Long story short, some of our video footage have gotten corrupted unfortunately. So for this episode, we're sticking with one camera angle.
Thank you for bearing with us, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode.
Barry and Vilv. Hey, welcome back everybody to another episode of the number one college podcast in the world right now, Barry and Vilv. My name is Barry.
This is Vilv, and today we're going to talk about on-campus versus off-campus housing. I think the new semester is going to be around the corner. Is around the corner. Well, not so close, but in January, new semester starts. A lot of people are starting to get into apply to college. They're going to start getting into college. So I think it's a good time to talk about on-campus versus off-campus housing in general, because I know that's an issue, especially if you're out of state. It tends to be an issue whether which one you want to choose. But before we get into that, Barry, you want to talk about like last week?
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Last week, man, that was a very special episode. For those of you who have not seen it, it was episode 5, our first ever in-person interview with the number one civil engineer at Georgia Tech, Mr. Salah, our dear friend. But no, for real though, man, it was a very nice episode. Please make sure you guys go and check that out if you haven't already. It is available, on YouTube, Spotify, and yes, we have also noticed our subscribers are going up on YouTube channel. So please, if you aren't already subscribed, please go ahead to YouTube, go to Barry and Vilv and subscribe. We would really, really, really appreciate that. And make sure you guys, tune in on our social channels. Please follow our Instagram, our TikTok, and all of that. And without further ado, Vilv, let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it. Yeah, I just want to say, also go follow our TikTok and Instagram. I see the TikTok's kind of popping off, which is
the TikTok is popping off.
Popping off, even though we don't have that many followers. So
Yes,
which
sir.
is good to see.
So
So
that's a good sign.
that's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
It's a good sign. We're getting out there. So please leave a like on the Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. Also, I just wanted to add this in. If anybody thinks they have interesting stories to share, they're going to college or have been to college or planning to go to college, you guys have interesting stories to share, please email us at barryandvilv@gmail.com, and let's get into contact with you. We'll get in contact with you guys, and we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
Have you guys on the podcast. So yeah,
we would love to share all stories on our platform, because at the end of the day, Barry and Vilv, we are the number one college podcast. So, and I'm sure all of your stories could be beneficial to others. You know what I mean? So yes, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, so let's get into it. So off-campus versus on-campus housing. I guess let's start off the basic difference is what. So the basic difference is on campus you usually, by on-campus housing, if you are not familiar with the term, we usually mean staying on campus, as the word literally is.
Yeah, it's self-explanatory,
Right. It's basically living. Every college has a certain number of dorms on campus.
But some colleges.
Most colleges usually do. Right?
Yeah.
I think they have.
Because some, for example, like some community colleges, they don't have the on-campus aspect.
Right.
So like some colleges and universities, most of the time they do have a capacity for students to live on campus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they have either dorms or on-campus apartments, whatever, some kind of facility to live on campus. And other than that, if students prefer not to live on campus, especially after their freshman year, they can choose to live off campus. They can, there's usually, what I've noticed, at least, I've been to a few campuses not right now, is that usually there's off-campus housing around the campus as well.
Yeah.
People have available apartments, even houses at times that people can rent for like a few people at a time.
Right.
So we just want to talk about that, and because I've personally gotten a lot of question about which one to prefer. We've talked about this a lot in our personal life, right? So right now we're living on campus, even though we're like almost in our third year, and we're gonna go into why we're doing that. Right? We've looked into off-campus housing. Even for next semester, we're looking into it. But again, we're gonna get into it in this episode as to why we've lived on campus so far.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's actually a great segue, Bill. Before we talk about why we're thinking about off campus, let's first talk about our experiences so far. Like 3 years we've been living on campus. I guess I can kick it off. So yes, this is my third year. I've gotten into college at a very interesting time. If you all remember the very first episode, I came into college 2020. That was the COVID year. And I was actually living on campus. Surprisingly, many people at that time actually decided not to live on campus. I don't know why I chose to live on campus, but it was actually very interesting. It was definitely different from now, right? From my experiences now. Living on campus the first year during COVID, it wasn't really much going on campus. Not a lot of people, not a lot of activities. Most of the campus was shut down. But fast forward second year and third year, I would say there are some advantages. There are some disadvantages. But um, I personally have not minded I personally do not mind, where we have lived for the past couple of years. But I do think, next year, our last year, I think we should, at least consider living off campus. So, like a much like better, nicer environment, just
Right.
just to treat ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think also the independence aspect, and I think
Absolutely.
we're due a change now.
Well, yeah,
we lived on campus
exactly, man.
for a while
We've,
now.
we've lived on campus for a while. I think it's time for a change,
For a change.
especially for our next year.
Absolutely, because it's going to be the last year. So I mean, that's a good way to segue into why we've been living on campus so far. What's
Right.
the biggest advantage of living on campus,
Sure.
and why I would recommend certain people, if you fall into this criteria, to live on campus.
Exactly.
So I think the main advantage for me, on my perspective, is the convenience factor.
Absolutely.
Now, I think the convenience is a simple word, but it's actually multifaceted. The levels of convenience you get
Mhm.
with just living on campus.
No, I agree. No, I agree, man. And that whole convenience factor could be like broken down into so many aspects, right? For example, first of all, I do agree with you. Like, convenience is like the major benefit of living on campus. Let's just think about, for example, classes, right? Like you don't have to commute every single day. You just wake up from your dorm or whatever, and then you just head to class. It's way more efficient, way more convenient, as opposed to number one, especially if you have morning classes, as opposed to waking up early from your on-campus living, and some people actually live with their parents, so at home.
Right.
So they would have to wake up even earlier just to drive maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes to the Georgia Tech campus or to any campus, and then just to make it to their first class, right?
Right.
Whereas here, we just wake up early in the morning and we can either scoot there or walk there. It's very convenient.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I think that's the number one thing that we're saving time. We're saving a lot of time, but just not commuting.
Time and money.
Time and money as well.
And I'm a businessman. I gotta save money, man.
Right. So it's like commuting. I mean, if you have a car or something, I guess then you might think about it. But even that's an added expense. You save money on transportation. You save time. Time is money. We've always said this. So that and it's funny that you mentioned the commuting thing, because we've been planning to have someone on to talk about what the whole commuting thing looks like to come from campus. Is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
And this person, this is a sneak peek into a future episode.
Just stay tuned for that future episode.
This person drives almost an hour, or actually 2 hours technically, an hour here, an hour back to come and go to college. He commutes. He has a car, but it's almost an hour drive. So we're gonna have him on.
That's a lot, man.
That's a lot. I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know if I can do that, man.
Yeah. So the convenience of the number one thing is the time, and the second one is that you save money on transportation.
Yeah.
Because transportation, you don't have to use anything. Otherwise, if you really want to, there's buses on campus which are free to use.
Absolutely. And that's actually a great point there, Vilv. You mentioned buses. Also, I guess in addition to all of this, like the saving the time or whatever, another benefit is the accessibility. Right. Accessibility to buses, accessibility to a library. For example, I'm pretty sure your off-campus apartment or maybe near your home, there's probably not a library there, a full-fledged library that you can go to. So that's another convenience factor. And also maybe a gym, for example. Most universities, most colleges, they have campus recreational centers, right? A full-fledged gym with courts or whatever, swimming pools, and maybe that's something that you just cannot find at your residence home, or maybe even an off-campus living. So all of these are considered, or all these are things that we consider are major benefits, to living on the campus.
Right. I think the library aspect, I just want to add to that, we visited some nice off-campus apartments, some nice ones. So
very nice ones, man.
Right, they have meeting rooms and breakouts and where people can meet, and it's very nice. But the thing is, what I've noticed is they often, apparently, from what what we've learned from talking to these people, is that they can get overcrowded during exam sessions or when midterms are going on. finals are going on because everybody's like trying to find a place they can quietly go and study. Whereas in a campus, you have a giant library. It's really unlikely that it's going to get that overcrowded.
Right.
Feel me? And also the rec center thing. Like a lot of these apartments do have gyms. Some of them even have swimming pools, but it's just not as good as the rec center on campus.
It's not to the scale.
Exactly.
Right.
Like we have
the capacity, that the campus once holds sometimes.
Right. So for instance, like Georgia Tech has one of the best rec centers in the country, and I can tell you this: the rec center has everything from a basketball court to I think a rock climbing wall,
rock climbing to even an Olympic style swimming pool.
Olympic style swimming pool.
I think we actually had the Olympics here one time.
Yeah, I forgot what the I think it was the 1998 or something like that.
Right.
I forgot which one it was, but this was actually an Olympic Village. So because of that, we have a field full on like the field where people play soccer. Some people play ultimate frisbee.
Right.
There's people playing lacrosse.
Exactly.
So it's like those kind of things. If you want to do that, you have to commute to campus, or either do that or find some other aspect to other resource.
Exactly. Especially in that capacity.
If you're especially into like an active lifestyle, it makes sense to live on campus. I think so. Based on that, the convenience and broken down into these 3-4 points, that is the main advantage of living on campus. Now let's go into the main advantage of living off campus.
Yeah, I guess speaking about the advantages of living off campus could be, in a way, the disadvantages of living on campus.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite, right? And the major thing that I can think about, when living off campus as an advantage is the better living condition.
Right.
Right.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely.
Better interior, like more space. Things are just more beautiful, like a much better view, especially these sky rises here in Atlanta. Oh my god, we've been to a couple of these. We've been on the inside, and just the view that they get, we're jealous of that in our dorm. We don't get that view.
Yeah.
The view we get is like with the soccer field.
The soccer
field,
get me wrong, it's not bad. But
it's not bad, but compare that to the midtown of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's like it's funny because we just had Salah on like the last episode. We visited his apartment, right?
Oh yeah.
21st floor or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Bro,
this guy's living in the penthouse vibes, man.
It's Salah, bro. If you were watching,
Salah, you gotta hook us up, man. Shoot.
His apartment is so nice, and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, off campus, you will get way better housing quality, especially for the money. You will get way better housing for the money off campus. The apartments they don't only look nice,
right,
but they also have better service, better maintenance. If you need something fixed, you just call them. And Georgia Tech is terrible. I don't want to bash anybody, but it's really not that good. Like I know this is something they have to work on. Is that their housing response to any maintenance requests or service requests it takes forever. Versus I've heard that for apartments it's much more like quick. They'll handle it.
It's faster.
Right, because I don't know, maybe it's because it's private or what I mean.
I see.
Whatever that is, it's better. So that's a big advantage for them.
Actually another big advantage in addition to all of this, I guess, is like the independence factor of it. Like
right.
You know what I mean? Like just think about it this way, man. If you make the choice to live off campus, you're adding that responsibility on yourself. You're kind of like an adult. Right? More independence in that. I'm pretty sure a lot of the times you may be cooking, right? At home. And also in terms of like the whole billing and financial side of things, that you're responsible for paying the rent. You're like an actual adult now. So it makes you a bit more independent. Whereas like the on campus, maybe if you had that financial aid to cover, like all of that is covered for that semester, you don't really think about it.
Right.
Especially also the meal plan, all that is covered, where you just go to any dining hall and you just go eat for free. I mean, well, not free, but you just go eat. Is much more convenient. But in the in the off campus,
it's much more realistic.
You might have to go buy groceries. Mm-hmm. You might have to do meal prep, which is much more realistic to the real world, right? So I would say another advantage, it prepares you to be much more independent.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So I think those are the two aspects of each things that we want to like highlight, that these are the clear advantages for each of them. But now we can get into the more contentious issues, the more debatable issues, and which I would say number one for me is expenses, right? This is what everybody thinks about when choosing housing is how much will it cost?
Exactly.
Now, I think this is not as straightforward as it seems. I've heard a lot of people say, and I've seen it a lot online as well, a lot of content creators say this, is that off-campus housing is straight up much more cheap.
Mm.
You know, they just say, "Oh, you save a lot of money by living off campus."
Mm.
I would tend to disagree from what I've seen so
Okay.
far in Atlanta. What would you say?
I would say it is definitely mixed, right?
Right.
This is that's why we categorize this in in the debatable category, because I think it all depends on like location. It may be a university, right? From my experiences, I've heard both sides, right?
Right.
There have been cases where living off campus is much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
You save a whole lot of money, right? And there are also cases where it's not that big of a difference compared to if you were to live on campus, right? And there have been cases where it's just far more expensive, right? And going back to the location piece, I would say Atlanta is actually, Atlanta is getting more and more expensive, right? So
It's a growing city.
it is a growing city,
Yeah.
right? It is. First of all, it is the next major innovation hub,
Yeah.
right? So we've seen a lot of companies coming here to our city
Mm-hmm.
because they see the talent that we have here. They see the talent that schools like Georgia Tech is producing, and they want to be part of that. So that overall improves the value of the city, right? That's what happened to places like New York and California, Silicon Valley. That's what made
even Austin recently. Right? Austin,
Texas. Oh, Texas is a growing bro. Texas is coming at the next. Oh yeah, and I think even Dallas.
Dallas.
Oh yeah, those places are like really really thriving. You know, and all of that contributes to the overall increase in value, which ultimately increases like costs and living expenses. But yeah, overall there is like a mixed opinion here.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a debate to be had here. So if we want to throw out some figures here, for instance, we pay what I think I did the monthly. So we pay per semester, but I did the monthly cost, and it comes down to something like $960 something. $960 is that's what we're paying monthly here on campus to live, and we have a two-bedroom apartment essentially. It's very New York style, where the kitchen is like close to the apartment.
Oh yeah.
You don't really have an living room like living room or anything like that, right?
Right.
So that's what we talked about when we said like the off-campus housing is technically looks better and is like aesthetically way better, but it's cheaper here compared to off-campus, where I have friends who are living off-campus, even like 5 minutes away from campus, right? They're living a 5-minute drive away from campus. That's like a 15-minute walk to campus.
Yeah.
And they're paying and they're saying 2-bedroom apartment. Right. They're paying $1,100, like $1,050 to $1,100.
But
compared
to see, Vilv, that just goes back to the trade-off factor, right? Yes, you're paying $100, $200 more, right? But then think about like the security, right? Think about like the more convenience in terms of like service, right? Think about like the view. Some people that alone, like the view alone, is okay for them to pay an extra $100, $200 just to live off campus, just to get that beautiful view. Every morning you wake up to like a skyline.
Right.
So yes, in our case, it is. It appears to be expensive to live off campus, but you also have to think about it. Are we living in the most expensive housing though on campus?
I mean,
because I think that's also another factor.
I guess that's an interesting factor. But I think that's definitely something to consider. What are the trade-offs you're willing to do? What is your preference? So are you financially how good you are? Can you afford to pay $120, $150 more a month?
Exactly. Because sorry to cut you off there, because I know some places on campus they have like the 1 bedrooms, and I know those cost more a lot. Those cost more than the 2 ones.
I would think they do. Usually, I would think that the 4 bedrooms cost less.
Exactly.
So but that's what I'm seeing. Like, it's not a huge difference, but there's definitely, it seems that off campus, especially we're in Midtown Atlanta.
Especially Midtown.
Midtown Atlanta. I mean, if you guys have been checking out our Instagram, you'll see our office space. It's a very nice area.
Very nice area,
which equals a lot of money. So
we gotta pay a lot. I'm just kidding.
We're very fortunate. We're not, whatever. But Midtown Atlanta is expensive. So you have to pay a lot for the rent, but I guess this is where the argument comes in, is that where do you live in? So if you're living in, for instance, New York City, or like Atlanta, or like Austin, or like, in a major city in Cali, or in Washington or something, like expensive state.
You're right.
You are probably, like Seattle, whatever, like you are probably better off living on campus,
Okay.
financially speaking.
Financially, yeah.
Financially speaking, you're maybe better off if financials are the main concern. You're probably better off living on campus versus off campus.
Right.
Whereas if you're living on a university or a college town,
right.
So for instance, we had Fahmid on, and he wants to go to UF, and which is in Gainesville, and Gainesville is pretty much like a college town. Like it's not a major city in Florida, right? But it's basically centered around the University of Florida.
I see.
So if you go there, or I was in the University of Alabama. I was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, this summer doing an internship there. And again, Tuscaloosa is like a very suburban city. It's not urban. It's very different from Atlanta.
I see.
You don't really have high rises like that. It's very suburban, very like there's a lot of trees and like just forests and everything. So it's like that, and the cities surrounding the University of Alabama. That's really the culture and everything there. The university is the heart of the city. So their off-campus apartment is actually not that expensive. Very cheap. Like I was living for $400 a month.
Wow.
Very cheap. $400,
and
it was like a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment. $400 a month.
Wow.
Very cheap, and I was very lucky because nobody else was there because it was summer. So I pretty much had that apartment to myself, and I was only paying $400 a month. Very big apartment space. And the apartment has gym, swimming pools, everything you can ask for.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
So I guess location is a very
big factor.
Key factor.
So again, your decision will come down to you doing a bit of research into where you're living.
Exactly.
If you're living in a major city like us, probably worth considering on-campus apartment.
Right. Especially for your first couple of years.
Especially
now, maybe for your last year, you want to ball out, you want to have that fun.
Maybe you got some internship money.
Yeah, exactly. Now you can start having that conversation. Right. Is it worth it now? Because you're right. With some internship money, you probably have some money now to spend. So in that case, it might be worth it. If it's your last year, to just go all in.
Right. So again, that's the thing. So segueing something from here is that the expenses, something to consider here, which a lot of people make the argument for, is the meal prep. So a lot of people say you save a lot of money by living off campus because you don't have to, you get to go off the meal plan that's on campus, which that is, I will admit, objectively speaking, the meal plan is way more expensive than prepping your own meals.
Right.
But that's because you're trading convenience for money.
Exactly.
You're trading just going into a dining, just tapping your campus card and going into a dining hall versus actually doing the groceries, spending the time to cook, which we've recently started doing, which is fun. But like,
oh yeah, bro, we gotta speak about that. Bro. Hey, me and Vilv actually we started experimenting in our first time ever cooking. And I'm not gonna lie to you, actually it turned out to be successful.
Bro,
we are like certified chefs now, man. Certified chefs. Like our the other day we made like kebab sandwiches.
Some kebab sandwiches.
Oh, that was
shout out to the Saudis for giving us.
Shout out to the Saudis, man, for giving us that raw.
Bro, it's so funny. They give us like a chunk of meat, a half kilo chunk of meat.
Oh man.
And we're like, bro, what are we
gonna do with this, bro? And we had no choice but to make it.
We called your mom, we called my mom, and we're like, okay, how do you actually cook
what
this?
What do we do?
How do you actually cook this?
Yeah.
Good thing we had some olive oil, so we were like,
put
it in the pan.
We had the pan and the olive oil.
And good thing they kind of like marinated the meat already.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They already had the spices and everything.
And stuff,
the seasoning, yeah.
We really enjoyed it. It actually turned out to be great. It actually tasted great.
Oh, yeah.
So that's something we enjoyed. But what we realized, remember, it took us like, an hour and 30 minutes?
It took us like an hour and 30 minutes.
Which we will admit, we're not the most professional people, but that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, you're spending a lot of time to make a meal, but you are saving a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I guess this is the question you got to ask yourself when it comes to meal prep, which is another big factor about living off campus, is that are you willing to trade your time for money? I guess that's what it comes down to. Is your time more valuable than the money you're gonna pay? If you're like, oh, if you're like one of those people who are like, I can spend $150 more for a nicer view, then you can probably spend more to just get a meal plan and spend it on campus or dining or somewhere, like that. Versus if you're really trying to crunch down on the money because you got time but you don't have money because you're on, let's say, limited scholarship, their financials are not as solid. You're like, no, I don't really care about the time. I'm willing to put in the time. I need to save the money. Then your way is probably meal prep, and your way is probably going off campus. You will save a lot more money that way.
Right. It sounds like this is a business class right now.
It's a business class. Right? It comes
saving your time for money.
Exactly. So
no, but yeah, I guess this is like a great segue to transition to the next a debatable topic that we had.
Yeah. So this one is an important one. So this has recently gotten a lot of attention because of an incident that happened. Sadly, an incident that happened at Purdue University,
Mm.
which is the security of living.
Yeah, the security.
This has become a big thing. This has become national news.
Right.
Again, I just want to say
And it's very recent as well.
right. Thoughts and condolences go out to
Absolutely, man.
to
Yeah,
that guy
our
and
condolences
his
go out to that
family.
family.
If you guys don't know what happened, so apparently there is so not apparently, obviously this happened. It's like there's this student, I forgot his name. I'm sorry, I forgot his name, but he was the student that went to Purdue, and he unfortunately, as things stand, I think it's still an ongoing investigation. It seems that he died.
Mm.
He died, and it seems that the likely suspect for his death was that he was killed by his roommate.
Mm.
For now, that is the situation. I think there's still investigation in court still going on, but yeah, and this is really scary. I mean, I hope you don't do anything like that to me, man.
Hey, I hope you don't kill me, Bill. Wait a minute, man. I'm not gonna kill you. I hope you don't kill me, though, man.
No, we don't want to make too light of this situation,
No,
but I think we were talking about this beforehand, and we were like, security is a big question when living on campus versus off campus, especially because we're living in Atlanta, right, bro? Like Atlanta, for the beautiful city it is, the vibrant, beautiful city it is, the main we all know that the crime here,
Yeah,
it's one of the highest in the country.
yeah, no, absolutely. That's actually a great point because, actually, before hearing about the security, this whole like incident at the other university, I didn't know about this until you told me.
Yeah.
But before hearing about this, I always, thought that living on campus was way more secure because of the campus police and
Right.
and all that. And you're right, Atlanta is even though it is a growing city, at the same time the crime rate is also growing, right? So I would have thought that like living outside of the campus would put you at a much higher risk and more vulnerable, right? I just thought that the safest option was to live on campus. Now after you brought this to my attention, now it looks like it is actually also debatable as well.
Now it's debatable because I don't know if you remember, this was like 6 months ago. There was this incident at the Mark. So the Mark is like a closed apartment to
Like off-campus living.
You remember where there was like armed intruder that broke in, even though they have like card systems where you have to card through multiple doors to actually get to where you live.
Right.
They apparently had this incident where a guy with like gun
Right.
with a gun broke in, and I think somebody died.
Ah.
I don't know if that was the gunman that got killed or somebody else that got killed there or something like that. Which is crazy to think about. Like imagine these are just college students there. So that's what I'm thinking. So I always thought that living on campus, like you said, was always safer because it's like we got GTPD, here.
Yeah.
They're already always patrolling. They're
Absolutely.
they're always on the lookout. So you would think, but the thing is, I don't know. Now it's become a debatable topic. Is it safe on campus?
Exactly.
Even, like,
is it safe on campus?
I mean, that's become a thing. But again, I guess I would say, and I'm not trying to make light of this situation, is that I guess the roommate thing, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but this goes to show how important it is, to find that. And I'm glad that Georgia Tech has that good system of actually matching you with a good roommate, right? And I guess in order to prevent something like this from happening before, if you notice, things aren't working out with your roommate. I don't know about other schools, but Georgia Tech actually allows you to switch with roommates.
Right.
Get
you can report.
Right? Yeah. So if you guys are watching this, I hope this never happens to you. But if it does, if you're in that situation, it's always good to report and make others aware of the situation.
Right. So just be careful out there, guys. But the security, I guess, it comes down to city to city. If you're living in a city like Atlanta or a high crime city, Chicago or something like that, then you might want to think about living on campus versus off campus, which one's better.
No,
but
I was just gonna say, before we wrap up, I just wanted to just mention one more thing that's debatable, like the contrast in regards to off-campus living, right? I know some people, like you see, like for example, when you live on campus, I think we're just binded to 2 semesters.
2 semesters, but even then, I think if you're graduating, you can choose one
you
semester.
Can choose, right? But I think so I've never lived off campus, but I think the way it goes is, if you live off campus, again, you're more like an adult, right? It's more like a real apartment, right? So you have to have that binding contract. What is it more? Is it more like 10 months or over the whole year? Or?
So I think it's for 12 months usually, unless you're graduating and you can tell them definitively that I'm going to move out after certain times. Then you might get a shorter contract.
Shorter contract.
Otherwise, it has to be a 12-month contract. And the issue is that oftentimes what we see is that they have these 12-month contracts, and if you let's say get an internship,
Right.
then you end up in a situation where let's say you have to move out and go to another state. You're like in the situation where you have this apartment because you signed this contract for 12 months. You have that apartment.
Right.
Now you got to try to find a sublease,
Exactly.
which is not easy to find.
Which is not easy.
And it's an additional headache. And if you don't do that, you have to pay out of pocket for that apartment where you're not even living. So I think that's something to definitely consider about it, whether it's worth taking that risk. But yeah, you know, with that being said, I think we've pretty much covered everything for this topic.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This was a very interesting episode. You know, to wrap it up, you know, today we spoke about the differences between on-campus and off-campus living and the benefits and disadvantages of each.
Right.
I hope this episode could help you all like make like a much informed decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you want to say anything else?
No, just keep on supporting us. Thank you guys for all the great comments and feedback. And I guess that's it for this episode. See you guys in the next one.
All right, Barry and Vilv signing out.